The intersection of faith and leadership is woven together by an indestructible bond of trust, which is fortified by the assurance of a psychologically safe and vibrant environment to reach the fullest heights of your peak performance and potential. And according to my friends over at LinkedIn, faith is influenced by leadership because it molds our ethical framework, decision-making process, and the manner in which we handle and embrace challenges. Meanwhile, according to a study from the Center of Creative Leadership, leaders who incorporate their faith into their leadership style or decision-making process tend to exhibit higher levels of integrity and ethical behavior. My friends, this is all good news for my friend Ryan Reichert. He's a professional speaker, mindset trainer, executive coach, and best-selling author. He empowers overwhelmed professionals to break free from limiting beliefs, discover their God-given purpose, and pursue a life-changing transformation. He describes himself as a born-again believer in Jesus, a servant leader who brings more than 4 decades of life experience to his work, moving without fail from small-town America to globally metropolitan markets. Reichert spent more than 23 years in the U.S. Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel after 4 combat deployments, which included a leadership role as a Foreign Service Director. Once his military service had concluded, Reichert transformed and transitioned his military service and his lessons of leadership into the corporate world of leading people and putting them on the right track. He's also a recovery advocate who dealt with his own alcohol addiction himself. Today, he says, his mission is clear: to help others find their own path to faith, purpose, and transformation, cultivating confidence, reinstating hope, in unlocking potential in leaders who are already living their best lives. And Reichert joined me this week to tell me more about the intersection of faith, religion, leadership, and a sense of personal and collective autonomy to build and lead lives of intentional, meaningful, and legacy-building purpose. And he joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to have a conversation with you about the intersection of leadership and faith, my friend. It's great to see you, and happy Friday to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, Ryan, I know that you're very passionate about empowering overwhelmed professionals to break free from their limiting beliefs, my friend. and help them be guided by both faith, purpose, and their overall calling, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do, my friend, and what makes you so fabulous.
Well, I think it's the closer to one's likeness with Christ that allows us to, be that true service provider, and every day, basically, giving back as much as possible. Just as you asked me before we hopped on the show, what I've been up to today, it's all about providing service, picking up guys that need rides to different places that, don't have means to get there of their own. And it's amazing how just simple things like that can fill your cup back up and continue to just give back to the community and work on ourselves. It's a beautiful thing to have that second chance at life to really learn and understand. It's all about loving our neighbor and doing good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I know that you spent 23 years in the U.S. Army, my friend. So, first of all, thank you for your service. And you retired as a lieutenant colonel after four combat deployments. And, my friend, I know that you held leadership roles as a foreign service director. And after your military service was over, you translated your skills into the Fortune 500 world, and you now work by helping people gain practical insights into corporate leadership and strategy, my friend. So what are your thoughts on high level decision making, effective leadership, and how your time in the service affects your view in leadership, my friend?
Oh, definitely. That's a great question, Kevin. I love just thinking about the dynamic of really as a leader learning how to listen first, that ability to understand the situation with as much information as presented, and a lot of that can come through listening, asking questions, and then from there providing the necessary guidance to have a successful execution in whatever it looks like that you're about to do. When I
Yeah,
reflect on 23 years of that and then going into Fortune 500, you can see, I guess, what good leadership looks like and possibly poor leadership. And it really does go back to, those who listen and those have the ability to ask the necessary questions to refine the guidance that they're about to give.
yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, I was also curious to ask you, what do you think makes an effective listener as a leader? Because all leaders aren't built the same, and other leaders are better at listening than others. So, what do you think makes an effective listening leader, my friend?
Right. Definitely taking the time to really have personal growth plans for your team and holding your team accountable to those growth plans. The understanding of really a talent management system and development, leader development, professional development, where the next 1, 3, 5 years of one's career, both professionally and personally, gets developed on top of everything that they're doing within their roles, responsibilities, job, from that execution on a day to day. But really, the focus is on that personal growth and that professional development.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, what do you think it means to invest in the people that you're leading? Because, I believe that leadership is a people business. And if you allow people that you're in charge of leading to also have authority in the decision making process, you become a better leader. So, what do you think it means to invest in the people that you're leading, my friend?
I think if you lead with humility, understanding that you put someone else before yourself, before you have that first initial thought that goes off on what can I get out of this? How is this gonna, their work promote me down the road? It's not. It's all about that team giving way together, mentoring and developing, those that work for you. Yeah, just with the way the pyramid and organizational structure works, you really have that humble mindset and growth mindset, understanding that it's all about them and not about you. A true leader has that ability to really direct in such a way that everyone understands their role, and they also understand the role of the next person above them. So there's no problem with them stepping into that role because they understand the vision, the mission, and the necessary objectives to accomplish said mission. And that just happens to go with that listening, the talent management, the professional development, the personal development. And you just really have that cohesive team through the proper communication that builds trust. And then that legacy is continued by the way that that leader showed everyone else how to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, just before I ask you about overcoming addiction and your battle with alcohol, I'm also curious to ask you about this. Based on your years in military service and the way that a society is sort of portraying sort of, the collaboration of ideas and coming together and compromising. I'm curious to ask you about the whole idea of being friends with your neighbor again and really healing the societal divisions that we have today in society. How do you think we can all once again appreciate the art of compromise through conversation and understanding? My friend, what are your thoughts on how we can lead in healing societal division?
Sure. Yeah, it's understanding that we're all in this together. Really, at the end of the day, we have to reflect upon who do we want to be and how would we want to be treated. You think back to the golden rule and those dynamics of treating everyone like you want to be treated. And to me, today, that's kind, loving, caring, having compassion and empathy for others. Sure, there's times where there is division, but what's the fastest way to get past those differences and come to a common ground and a common understanding? So therefore, you can love your neighbor and get to the most finite piece of why are we having these disagreements to begin with? And most of the time, it's out of the inability to communicate effectively or communicate at all. And really, that's the bias of it. If you have some differences, like don't build a wall, don't build a fence. Have the way to discuss it and have a dialogue and so on and so forth to where you can come into a compromise and go about your business, forgiving each other for however you treated each other while you're having that misunderstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that you're driven by helping people, and I know that you're passionate about that, and I know that you're a recovery advocate, my friend, who overcame, as I said earlier, your own battle with alcohol addiction, and your personal journey has informed sort of having a level of compassion for yourself personally, and having this accountability approach during your coaching, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you, how do you incorporate your own life experiences into the work that you do today? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, no, it's such another great question, Kevin. Really, the reflection is in the perseverance and understanding if we continue to put the work in, the redemption and the Lord's grace and mercy on ourselves and on our soul moving forward in life to help another human being. To me today, that's the bottom line, is to help someone achieve the greatness that was put inside of them when they were born. And we're all born into different circumstances, depending on where in the world we happen to be, birthed into. When I'm allowed to, coach others, this is such a blessing because I can see the talent and the greatness inside of them, and it's possibly been years that it's been covered up with shame and blame, and there's guilt, and there's just so many different things that we happen to cover ourselves up with, and that talent that we had, forget the work that's necessary to put in to get, that refined diamond over time and space. And it's a contractual execution of what do you want to be when you put in the work? What do you want it to look like? There's different levels to that for each person that's willing to, exercise that 4-letter word of work. And in the end, when they see themselves, they can be proud of that, and they can see how far that they've come by each time that we have a session together, and they continue to knock out their daily wins, their physical win, their mental win, their spiritual win. They do that every day for 90 days, and in the end, they just continue to do that throughout their life, and it betters them personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally. It's so amazing to see it when everybody's willing to persevere and put that work in. Super special to see.
Absolutely, my friend. Life is all about moving the needle of progress forward, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, my friend. Now, I know, Brian, that you're a girl dad of two daughters. You also played collegiate rugby, my friend, at the University of North Dakota, and you're also a speaker who guides your messages through faith and purpose, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about being a girl dad, the impact that's had on your life, your athletic background, and how you compete to have the best days that you can on a regular basis, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no. Yeah, being a girl dad, super special. Had many years of Disney princesses between Aurora, Briar Rose, Cinderella, Ariel, The Little Mermaid. Trying to think what other ones that they dressed up as, and so spent a lot of time at Disneyland or Disney World when the girls were little. Today they're young women, so it's amazing to see their independence and their growth, and so very proud of moving on to college and choosing their trade as an interior designer and an elementary teacher. When I reflect on that, it's hard because there were moments, through my addiction that, I don't know what I missed out on. I don't know where I was absent and unfortunately not there. But I know today, the last 2+ years, I've been there and working on myself. And today we have a beautiful relationship where we're able to talk about so many things that we probably never would have ever talked about because it took me forgiving myself for some of the times that I had. And I think back to rugby in college, boy, that was those are some wild times for 3 years playing with the University of North Dakota rugby team. Unfortunately, did a lot of terrible things, streaking and so forth. When you score your first try, probably, I believe my mom was actually at that game. So unfortunately, my mom saw me naked once again as an adult versus a little boy running around. But it's something that I'd never change. It was just part of the story and super amazing to get to do that at the collegiate level. When I look at all the other things that happen today, life's so beautiful. The second chances we get to really want to spend time with those who we love. And today it's that much more beautiful than it ever once was. I mean, I loved it, being the dad that had little girls that dressed up in all kinds of dresses and makeup and all those things. But, the real thing is, are they able to go out in the world and be their own, human beings, even though they'll always be your little girls. And I see that today and go, yeah, they do amazing things, and I can't wait to see what they continue to do as they grow older each and every day.
Well, I tell you, Ryan, the most important job title you'll ever have is dad, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I want to talk about cultivating, confidence, purpose, and you're, really transforming the idea of hope and the intersection of hope and how we use faith and purpose to get that done. In your view, my friend, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I know that one really, it took me some time to actually land this. I teach focus, and focus to me is faith, opportunity, consistency, unconditional kindness, and the standard, which becomes your standard when you finally are able to, place a bar high enough that it's something that's going to really drive you to your success. I don't know if I was able to start with faith in my journey a couple years ago. It took some time to find my faith. But once I did find my faith, the hope was created to have a life once again that looked completely different, into my recovery journey and into my journey of finding purpose and transformation in myself and then now in others. And then it's really from there continuing to focus every single day on those, if it's your faith, if it's your family, if it's your friends, it's your finances, whatever F's you want to put up there in the front of the line. But I like faith. If I start with faith, everything else works out. When you look at the O and you have opportunities, say yes to all those opportunities. Even if you say yes to an opportunity and it doesn't turn out to be exactly how you wanted it to be, you can change that. You can turn right. You can turn left. You can stop and not continue to go down that road. But don't look at, every opportunity as an obstacle. It might be an obstacle. That's the dynamic of climbing mountains. We have people that climb all these amazing mountains throughout the world, and that's quite the feat. But I guarantee at first, while they're getting ready to train for it, it's a massive obstacle. Consistency is key. Consistency is what allows you to grow each and every day. Like I talked about the 3 wins, your physical win, your mental win, and your spiritual win. You need to do those every single day. And I say if you how you execute your 5 to 9 locks in your 9 to 5. So I get to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. After a couple of hours in the gym, I read my Bible, and then I meditate. That gets after my physical win, my mental win, and my spiritual win well before 8 o'clock in the morning. Get cleaned up, have some breakfast, and then go to work. And no matter what happens at work from 9 to 5, good, bad, or indifferent, I've won because I knocked out my 3 wins. The unconditional kindness is something that you have to really look at and take a step back of how we treat every single human under the sun. I know we talked about having differences and division and possibly not loving our neighbors, but that's what you have to do. You have to love your neighbor. And I say there's a 6-step method to transform your life, and this is kind of what it looks like. Step 1 is smiling. You have soft, gentle eye contact, and you smile at everybody that you come across. And I guarantee you just brighten their day 100%. Step 2 is you say, please. Step 3 is thank you. Step 4 is excuse me. And step 5 is I am sorry. And step 6 is really simple. You just repeat that all day long. And you'll transform your life and everyone else's life around you just by doing those 6 simple steps.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and just finishing off is the standard, which becomes your standard, is just basically go back the opposite way. Do those 6 steps. Make eye contact. Say please. Say smile. Say please. Thank you. Excuse me. I'm sorry. And repeat. Then you knock out your 3 daily wins. You'll continue to see so many opportunities and not obstacles, and your faith will create that hope that you asked about just a little bit ago. You'll be so hopeful that you continue to focus on all those things I just discussed, that the love will just pour out of you and everyone around you. And that's what we focus on every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you today, my friend, is because I know that you lead your life through the mantra of wanting to help people turn every breaking point into a building block or a building point, my friend. And adversity will strike for all of us. So I'm curious to ask you, what do you think it means to turn a breaking point into a building block, my friend?
Yeah. I kind of look at it to just use, sports metaphors and dynamics and so on and so forth. You think of Michael Jordan, right, being cut from his high school basketball team. And then in my era, he's the greatest. He's the greatest. He's the GOAT. I think of Tom Brady, being the last one picked in the draft and becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks, with 7 championships and so on and so forth. Through that breaking point, you have nowhere else to go but to build up. And we never, ever remember our wins. We only remember our losses. And that's the understanding of don't be seduced by your success. I'm an avid writer, and so what if I've written a few books? It's the dynamic of what's the next book look like? I guarantee it's better than the last one, and it's sure as heck better than the first one you ever wrote. And that's how we should look at life. We should never get stuck at what happened yesterday. We should focus on today and just be grateful when tomorrow comes. And if tomorrow never comes, that's why today is so important. That you give it everything that you got until you put your head on your pillow tonight. And you just continue to do that day in and day out. You stack a bunch of days together, and you just continue to win at life every single day.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. I always tell people that we are all given a compass in life, and it's incumbent upon all of us to sort of point it in the direction we want it to go, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Ryan, my next two questions come from the Harvard Business School, my friend, because back in 2024, Harvard released a study that found that 70% of leaders believe it's important or very important to master a wide range of effective leadership sort of behaviors so that they can cultivate sort of meeting the future business and employee needs of their employers or who they're in charge of leading, my friend. So I'm curious about your thoughts on those findings and how you think we can sort of characterize effective people-first leadership. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, peel that back and think of ourselves as if even someone looking up to their leaders, but no matter what, we're all leaders. It's just we don't know where those little eyes are coming from, right? So establishing the example of, just simple things, arriving on time, being prepared to brief whatever you're supposed to be briefing on. So therefore, you're taking the time to be prepared. When you arrive, you have something to write with. I know today we have computers and phones and so on and so forth. I'm old school. I bring a notebook and a pencil everywhere I go, and I continue to have my computer and my phone with me as well. But when we jot those notes down, either from the leader that we're wanting to become, or as we're thinking about it from the dynamic of the leader that we are to others, you just really are a reflection of those around yourself. And so, great leaders show up before it's time to start. They have everything in order and put together, and they have their own way of recording or articulating whatever is going on around them. Those things you can take on anywhere you go and do great things, because if you don't arrive on time, you miss something. If you arrive ill-prepared, like you're wasting other people's time and they can't make decisions as necessary, nor can they give their decisions vice versa. And 3, if you don't write anything down, like what are you going to improve upon in all those different areas? So definitely, Harvard certainly gets it right when it comes to looking after all of the things that come out of what makes great leaders. And basically, it's just simple. They started doing all those 3 things early on. They continue to do them, that consistency that I talked about in focus. And basically, at the end of the day, they know that they have little eyes watching them. And so they're going to continue to do those 3 things properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, I want to talk to you about building a thriving organizational culture, because Harvard also found last year that 71% of employees believe that their leadership teams don't have the capability to take their organization to the next level, my friend. But 52% of Executives believe that their organizational culture is strong. So I'm curious to ask you about where do you think that disconnect comes from, and what do you think is the first key to establishing a great organizational culture, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that one to me, I mean, would really, I think, goes back to our earlier conversation of that development piece. And as a leader, are you developing those who work for you? Basically, the communication. Do you have effective communication? Are you listening to your subordinates so therefore you can provide the best feedback necessary? That growth and the personal development, professional and personal development plan that you're putting together with them. And then what is like your overall training plan look like when it comes to if it's a 10, 20, 30, 40 level employee, when we look at that individual contributor, manager, director, C-suite, whatever it can be, sometimes we do a poor job of not bringing in the right folks from each level to tie that bow on each present that we have every single day. And that's the stovepiping that can happen in a maybe toxic, not really love that word when it comes to toxic leadership or whatever that may be, because there might be some emotional immaturities that happen there and so forth. But I think it really comes down to the ability to communicate, which would build the trust necessary in your team to effectively show them what it's supposed to look like to be a leader. And that's where you get that breakdown of, I would say, the belief and the understanding that the leadership can execute in the best interest of the organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, I'm also curious to ask you about the impact that hiring folks with disabilities can have on an organizational culture, because they're the largest minority group with disposable income, but they're one of the most neglected when it comes to giving a fair shot at an equal opportunity, employment opportunity, my friend. And as you know, I was born with cerebral palsy, and it's one of my missions to show that people with disabilities can provide both innovation and strategic advantages when it comes to being infused into a workforce, my friend. So tell me about your thoughts on the importance of hiring folks with disabilities and the competitive advantage they can bring to an organization. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
No, definitely, Kevin. It's one of those to me where we must, as a disabled veteran, I think about those dynamics and how important it is. If you were to look just purely on that side of it, or me as a recovering alcoholic and addict, people might look at me and go, well, Ryan's damaged goods. Like we don't want to take on that risk. And what I would like to tell somebody is everything we do in life is risk management. And you have no idea what Kevin can do or Ryan can do until you allow them that opportunity and they can show what they do. A lot of it, though, is the bottom line. Everything's so focused on money. And, here's the deal. If we don't allow others to execute, maybe we're missing those who have those greatest talents under the sun to bring up something that the person that doesn't have said disability would never think about. It's the gratitude side of, things that you've had to go through in your life that I don't understand, those dynamics and struggles and so on and so forth. I know the ones that I've gone through and how that's changed my perception and perspective on certain things in life. So I things come and go through the ability to train and so on and so forth. But if a person's got the heart, they're never giving up. They're going to persevere through anything under the sun, and they're going to give you the better result at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I'm also curious to ask you about the whole idea of coming to a consensus as a society. I know I asked you earlier about societal divisions, but I'm also curious to ask ask you, how do you think we got here, and how do you think we can reverse sort of psychology, the way we look at our neighbors today, my friend? How can we make, prosperity a universal sort of component of life, regardless of whether you come from a higher social economic background or not, my friend? I'm curious to get your answer there.
That's like all of us having to look inside ourselves and see that we all need to give. I mean, we all need to have that kindness to see the disparity and have the gratitude for, whatever level we're currently at. And I see multiple sides to that because I've been the guy who was selfish and wanted to keep every single dollar to myself and the greed. And today that's a different case. Like, I want to give because I know that I'm so grateful for the second chance at life that I've been given in my recovery, where, the more that I give, the more the Lord graces me with the ability for something else. And it doesn't have to be money. I guess when I look at it today, to have my girls back in my life because of some of the choices that I made, before I started my recovery journey, that's priceless. You can't put a price on, having your children in your life. And I think it's that same when it comes to loving our neighbor and understanding that just because we look different, just because we might speak a different language, whatever that is, to have that grace and that mercy to know that wherever others are going through, it might be a little bit tougher than what Ryan's going through right now. And what would you do? Because someday you're going to be in a situation where you're going to need help. And if you haven't been the one that's been helping up to that point, you might find yourself in a rough spot.
Yeah, and right. I'm curious to ask you about modern day parenting. Considering your parenting journey, my friend, what do you think it means to be an effective and present parent in today's modern society? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, I think it has a number of different levels depending on, I think today I have an 18-year-old and an almost 20-year-old where you do have to allow them to make decisions for themselves. Sure, you don't want them to get hurt and you don't want them to make a poor decision, but that's part of life, is making those decisions and having to deal with the consequences. I don't think that's any different when the girls were younger. If they want to go, climb the jungle gym and maybe they're not ready to do it and they fall and hurt themselves, that's part of, the understanding of, at least they tried to do something that they wanted to do. Maybe they failed. And then you get to see if they have perseverance to get back up and do it again. I think that has to do with a lot of things that we don't allow our children to do because we don't want them to hurt. We want to take that hurt away from them. The greatest growth comes from that suffering period and getting better, putting the work in to improve themselves, be it in education, be it strength in sports, the dynamics in life between friends and other families and so on and so forth. That's the birthing of how our society continues to evolve and not stagnate. It's that personal growth we've talked about the entire interview, is really understanding that that's what we need to do, is push for personal growth in our children so they want to achieve more.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, I'm curious to end our conversation with two questions, my friend. The first of those two questions is a two-part question. I'm curious to ask you about transformational leadership because the HR tech sort of recruiting firm, HR Tech Services, found last year that nearly half of employees in America, at 48%, believe that their contributions inside an organization are undervalued, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you about how you define transformational leadership at how we can reverse the trend of employees not being seen for the contributions they make around the office. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I think that's the dichotomy, actually, of as humans, we all want affirmation. We want to affirm that we're doing a good job. And that's the self-love that when we reflect and look in the mirror, that we have the ability to love ourselves and know that if you gave 100%, it doesn't matter what that affirmation is coming back into how you did, because you're probably doing some form of service, because pretty much everything under the sun is a service. And if someone says, thank you, you did a good job. If someone smiles at you and asks you for more service, therefore you're providing great service. I think we really just get wrapped up in where we need that approval, and what we maybe didn't get from our parents or our friends or whomever, we didn't really think about it from the self. We have everything inside of us through our self-love, that you don't need all this affirmation from somewhere else, and really realizing, like, what do you want and what are you doing to get it? And that, to me, I think solves this gap when it comes to what are we looking for from our employers. We're trying to fill something up externally that we really need to be focusing on internally.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And my final question for you today has to do with legacy, my friend, because I believe that building legacy is our chief mission in life, my friend. So when you look at sort of the resilient journey of overcoming adversity you went through and your professional work that you do today, I'm curious, how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I want to make sure that I leave things behind that others can pick up and use in their day-to-day journey to better themselves. Give it 50 or 100 years, if nothing's written down or put into some form of teaching, it'll die with you. And your great-grandchildren won't even know who you are. So maybe if I write enough of it down and share it with the rest of the world, it'll stick around a little bit longer than that. And that's the legacy that I'd love to leave.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you personally, what's the best way they can do that?
Definitely. Ourprotectordevelopment.com. Head to our website and you'll be able to see all the books, the courses, coaching, either one-on-one, group coaching, seminars, any keynotes we got coming up, or if you want to book a keynote or a seminar, be fantastic. Also check out Our Healer, Our Protector with Ryan Reichert and Lisa Sander on any of the podcast channels out there under the sun. And then from a social media standpoint, Ryan T. Reichert or Army RT 1978. And I think I'm on all the platforms that we have these days when it comes to social media.
Well, fabulous, my friend. I want to thank you for our conversation on the intersection of leadership and faith, my friend. Your work in the space is really moving mountains of progress, my friend. So I want to thank you for your hard work and for agreeing to engage in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin, so very much. Love you.